Ethos.
It's been said there are two topics you should never bring up at a dinner party: religion or politics. But this isn't a party, it's a podcast, and one about taking the next steps in life and business. So I'd like to talk a little bit about faith today. Stick around. Hopefully, it'll encourage you. This is the Next Simple Step podcast. I'm Paul Goldsmith. Unfortunately, much of faith in America and really the world has been politicized. When you mix religion and politics, you always get more politics. But that needn't be. Faith is foundational to how each of us live our lives. It's a first principle, and I've been thinking a lot about first principle thinking recently. It goes way back. Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, defined first principles as the first basis for which a thing is known. One of the brightest minds of our time, Elon Musk, founder of Tesla and SpaceX, he's actually popularized this way of thinking. When he decided to get into the space business, he got a little sticker shock at the price of rockets. They were understandably very expensive, upwards of $65 million. But instead of buying them for that price, he employed first principles thinking, breaking down the rockets to the raw materials and then building them with his own company, SpaceX. And he explained his reasoning from a physics framework, saying, physics teaches you to reason from first principles rather than by analogy. He said, let's look at the first principles. What is a rocket made of? Aerospace-grade aluminum alloys, plus some titanium, copper, and carbon fiber. Then he asked, what are the values of those materials on the commodity market? It turned out the material cost of a rocket was around 2% of the typical price. Elon is a first principles thinker, and it informs how he operates and lives his life. In fact, he was recently asked on a podcast about his faith, and he said, I agree with the principles that Jesus advocated. There's some great wisdom in the teaching of Jesus, and I agree with those teachings. Now, you may or may not agree with Elon, but I'm curious, what are your first principles when it comes to your view of God and Jesus? I think too often we lose our way when we outsource our fundamental beliefs to professional clergy or really anyone else. So let's go back to the basics. What do you believe? If you don't know, I'd like to suggest that's actually really good because you're not God. I'm not God. But I would suggest to you maybe pray that God would reveal himself to you. And I think that might be a good next simple step for all of us. Over the last few years, I got increasingly disenfranchised by the way I saw religion being practiced in public and the famous downfall of some celebrity pastors. It's very disheartening. It causes people to lose their faith. And so going back to first principles really can help you renew your faith. For me, I believe, as the Bible says, God is love, 1 John 4:16. And when Jesus was asked what God's greatest commandment was, he replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. For me, that's as first principle as it gets. If it's not loving, it's not of God. As for my religion, how I practice my faith, I take that from Jesus' little brother, James, who said, religion that our God accepts as pure and faultless is this: look after orphans and widows in their distress. First principle religion, to me, means we look after the people in the margins, the most vulnerable. And that's how I try to live my life and my faith. If you're looking to renew your faith, I'd encourage you to go back to first principles. Not what somebody else said, but go back to fundamentals. Check out what you believe for yourself. And if you're interested in spiritual conversations from people who don't claim to have it all figured out, there's another podcast on the Ethos app. It's called Threads, and I'd encourage you to check that out. If you don't have the Ethos radio app, you can download it for free on iPhone or Android. And if you'd like to chat more with me, you can reach me on Twitter or Instagram. I'm Paul J. Goldsmith on both. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you'll join me next time. Until then, have a great day.